everybody. Hello, everybody. How's that for a dead stop? Welcome to Virtual Fridays Dire Literary Series, and that's our professional production team, ready and willing to help out. So welcome to Virtual Fridays Dire Literary Series, and we have a very, very interesting and special guest tonight, Barbara Legere. And let me tell you a little bit about Barbara. And there she is. Barbara is an author and an advocate. And without giving away her whole book, book has to do with loving and learning through loss, about the loss of her son, Keven, and battled with him through his addiction and mental health issues. And, you know, that's pretty much all I'm going to say about it, because I will give away pretty much everything, but I certainly would love to hear Barbara read from her book. I've never heard her read from her book, and we'll do some questions for Barbara. So why don't you just take it away, and welcome.
Okay, I'm having a hard time hearing you, Tim. I don't know if everybody else is. Okay, this is my book called Keven's Choice, and I'm going to read a little bit from the first chapter. It starts with a quote from C.S. Lewis that says, "Mental pain is less dramatic than physical pain, but it is more common and also more hard to bear. The frequent attempt to conceal mental pain increases the burden. It is easier to say, 'My tooth is aching,' than to say, 'My heart is broken.' 2 years before my son died, my only child sat next to me in the morning sun as I sipped my coffee. Our yard was filled with plants and colorful flowers, and I had that content, comfortable feeling moms get sometimes, a moment of harmonious silence and companionship with your kid at your side. That peace didn't last long. 'Mom, we need to talk.' Keven lit up a Marlboro Smooth and turned to me with a serious expression. I prepared myself for something upsetting. 'Will you please tell me it's okay if I kill myself?' My chest tightened. A familiar churning started in my gut. Suicide was a common discussion in our house. Keven had attempted it many times, and each time he had asked me not to revive him if I found him. I always had. What parent wouldn't? 'Honey,' I tried to argue like usual. Keven grabbed my hand. 'Mom, look at me. You know how fucking unhappy I am. I don't have any real friends. I can't get a job. I can't stop using. I'm tired of feeling all this anxiety. All I want to do is die.' His eyes watery, he looked away. Except for crows squawking overhead, it was quiet. 'Please, just tell me it's okay if I kill myself. I'm not saying I'll do it today or in the near future. I don't know if I'll ever get the nerve up, but if I ever do, I need to know you'll understand. I know you won't want me to, but I need to know you'll get over it.' In the 8-hour conversation that followed, I crossed back and forth between feelings and logic. I felt like a failure as a parent. Logically, I knew I had done everything possible to help him, using every resource available to me. Keven was raised with unconditional love, and we were exceptionally close. I knew he loved me. The one thought I kept returning to: I'm his mom. I should be able to help him and prevent this. I looked away. Except for a few years in my 20s, I had lived in this house since I was 10 years old. Keven had lived here since the day he was born. The large yard had old growth trees that provided welcome shade on hot summer afternoons. The pond that my dad lovingly created rippled near our chairs. A few years back, Keven decided we needed a waterfall, so he designed one himself and got it installed. Beautiful rocks gently descended into the pool, where bright koi swam endlessly in circles with nowhere to go. That was how Keven felt. He was stuck, and he longed to be free of the pain that was his life. I looked into his glassy eyes, grateful to see the emotion that told me he wasn't too high. He'd only used enough heroin to avoid withdrawal symptoms. He was wearing shorts, and I placed my hand on his knee. His skin was warm from the sun. Both of his legs were covered with scars from the infections he got from shooting up, but I loved every inch of him, all of his scars, inside and out. Kev, I will never give you permission to kill yourself. I'll do anything to help you, anything, but I can't lose you. You're the most important person in my life. You are my life. Look, Mom, you know how much I love you. I don't want to hurt you. Please just agree to it, he argued. That's what substance users do. They argue until they wear you down. I became irritated because I recognized that I was in for a long day of this, and I just wanted to enjoy this beautiful moment with Keven. The sun, the pond, the flowers. Like always, it was tempting to just agree so we could move on. But this was one battle he was going to lose. What parent would give their child permission to kill themselves? My mind sorted through all the mental files I had stored from similar conversations over the years, searching for encouraging words, something that might work to change Keven's mind, to remind him of all the ways he was loved, of why he was loved. I had nothing new to say, nothing new to try. It seemed like we were out of resources and methods for recovery. And I'll end there.
Wow, thanks, Barbara. What a wonderful section and well written and very, very moving. How's my audio now? Thumbs up?
Now it's great. Yeah.
Oh, good, good. We're technological wizards. So what I'm going to do is we're going to do a little chat here. And Barbara, I realize that like some of this material is very emotional for you. If you don't feel like answering a question, don't answer the question. Like,
Okay, but I'm fine. I'll be fine.
Now, when this all happened, when did you decide to write a book? And were you driven to write it and to finish it? Like, tell me about the stages of actually writing Keven's Choice.
Well, he and I had talked about writing a book together, and it was going to be a book about his success and to encourage others that were, struggling with mental health and addiction. But that didn't happen, obviously. So about 3 months after he passed, I just kept getting this nagging feeling that I had to write a book. It was almost like he was telling me in my ear, Mom, write a book, Mom, write a book. And that's how I started. The first thing I did was join a writing group. And I know some of you from there. And that was a huge help because I didn't know anything about writing or publishing a book. And it really helped to have others around me that taught me so much and held me accountable and encouraged me.
What was the first passage that you wrote? Do you remember?
Of the book?
Yes.
It was, the first thing I wrote was the end. I wrote about the day that he died. And I think the first passage was, I can't remember exactly. It's the start of a chapter though. I'll tell you. August 11, 2020 was a hot summer day in Southern California. And then I talk about how Keven and I had talked that morning, how he was really depressed. And a little while later, I heard the gunshot.
Now, did you think you were writing the end at that point, or did you think you were writing the beginning?
I had no clue. I just started writing whatever was coming out and kind of knowing in the back of my mind that I could change it as time went on.
Now, did you have any regrets in presenting this very intimate part of your life?
No, I wanted to share the message that's within this book. It's not just about Keven. I mean, there's thousands of Kevens out there. There's people dying of overdose every day. There's people with mental illness that are dying from suicide every day. And I just wanted to write the book to show the world what they were like, that they are precious and important people too. And also to let parents that have lost a child know that they are not alone.
Is the book kind of his legacy, or do you feel like it's your legacy, or neither?
No, that's a good question. I don't know. I guess it would be his.
But tell us the best part of Keven.
The best part of Keven, his loyalty and his generosity to those that he loved. He was very sensitive, and he was the kind of friend that would be there for you no matter what. He had a great sense of humor, and a great giggle. Those are my favorite things about him.
Now, has anyone had like a strange or negative reaction to your book? And in other words, have people tried to reduce or minimize Keven as a person based on the fact that he had an addiction, or the fact that he, as some people might say, he took the chicken way out, the easy way out?
Yes, in fact, in the book, one of the first things that was said to me that day that he died, when the coroner was at my house, was the coroner's assistant said, "Oh, suicide is so selfish." If I would have been in my right mind, I would have said something back, because it's not selfish. That is not why people end their lives. I mean, sure, some people do for that reason, but yeah, I have heard that, and no one said anything negative to me. They might be talking behind my back about it, but Keven got enough judgment and condemnation while he was alive. So hopefully no one's saying anything about him now.
And do people reach out, since you wrote the book, do people reach out to you?
Yes, I've had a lot of people reach out. I've had parents say that it's helped, like one woman gave it to her sister because her sister didn't get what it was like to be the parent of an addict. And she said it finally sunk into her sister to understand what she'd been going through for all those years. I've had addicts thank me and tell me that they appreciated the way I shared about what it was like for them. And just, various people have commented to me, which I really appreciate.
Has anyone ever reached out to you that you just couldn't respond to for whatever reason?
I couldn't respond. Oh, well, there was one woman while I was writing the book who accused me of profiting off of my son's death. And I couldn't respond to her because I just wouldn't say the nice things. But the book's not making money. And even if it was, that's not why I wrote it.
Yeah, in the publishing world, people don't write to make money. I can see that Rolls Royce in front of your house, damn, you took advantage of Keven. Damn it.
Yeah, you can say it when I have the roles.
Jeff Varlin has said, has the process of writing the book made it easier to talk about it in a public setting?
Yes, it has, because in the process of writing, I just became so, I wrote it over and over and read it over and over, and that kind of helped me be able to talk about it without being as emotional. Like when I used to read in our writing group, I never could get through it without crying. And now I feel like I can do that much easier. Still not perfect at it, but.
During when I read Keven's Choice, it was kind of remarkable how you educated yourself about drugs and drug use. And I can almost see this as like this wonderful movie that, the mother who knows little or nothing about drugs kind of going into the dens. So while you were doing this and while you were kind of discovering the life of an addict or a life of other addicts, what was your biggest what the fuck moment?
Oh gosh, there was so many of them. I think it was, and this is in the book too, when I walked into a drug house and saw a guy shooting up a pregnant woman in her neck, and she was like really pregnant, and that just got me. Now,
do you want to save some of these folks? Do you have the mothering urge to save people?
Oh, hell yes. I wanted to save them all. You can't really save any of them. I couldn't even save my own son, but I became very close to a lot of his friends that their parents didn't want to talk to them anymore, or they just needed some encouragement. And I was always there. I enjoyed it. I loved hanging out with them. I thought I learned so much, and I could see who they were. They were great people. And unfortunately, most of the ones I was closest to are no longer here. In fact, all of the ones I was closest to are no longer here.
How do we stop that? Like, what can we do to help? What does society need to do, in your opinion?
Well, now the big thing is, you mean drug overdose or suicide or both?
Both.
I don't know. I think one thing is mental health care is not easy to get if you don't have good insurance. It needs to be totally overhauled. It was so hard to get Keven help. And the same with the drug treatment industry. It's just not easy. I think people need to be more aware that, the family next door may have all this stuff going on that you know nothing about. And if we could be more kind to each other and not put people down that are going through a hard time, the homeless guy you see on the corner, he's somebody's kid, and just be more kind in general. I think that would help a little bit.
Well, there's this cycle that I've seen with drug addiction, that the addict often feels terrible when they're using, yet they still feel terrible when they're not using because they're away from their drug. And that leads to suicide very often with your son. Is there a certain mix of mental health and rehab? I mean, does rehab work? Or what do you feel is the best help for someone in that situation?
Well, I think rehab does work if you're ready. It all depends on the individual person. Keven was helped by some drug treatment centers, and most of them do, combine mental health, and they used to call it dually diagnosed. Now they call it co-occurring disorders, if you're both mentally ill and addicted. So most places do, treat both at the same time, but I forgot the question.
So how do you break the cycle of
How do you break the cycle? Oh my gosh. Well, Keven never could. He never could. I know a lot of people that have, and they got to the point where there was something in their life that was more important to them, that gave them the fortitude, the everything that they needed to endure one moment at a time to get through. The beginning of withdrawals for a heroin addict is like hell. And I think that's a big fear for a lot of people. And I think they need to seek medical treatment at that time to make it easier. Because once you get over that hump, then maybe you feel well enough to be strong. If that makes
now?
sense.
Is it a good idea to regulate the heroin use? In other words, having safe spaces to shoot, and or trying to do something to regulate to have drugs safe on the street? Because these days, and there's so many, like if you're buying something and you think it's something and it turns out to be deadly fentanyl, is there a way government can be positive and have a positive approach to people that are addicted in a way that saves their lives?
I think so. I think that in the case of fentanyl, which is the scariest thing that's ever hit the streets, people need to be supplied with test strips, and you can test whatever you're using. Unfortunately, a young kid who's taking a pill may not know about a test strip, but if it was made available, we need to talk about it on the news. I mean, you see cigarette and alcohol on the news all the time, but where's the fentanyl warnings? I am for harm reduction. I do believe in providing clean needles. I don't know how I feel about providing a safe space to use, but in other countries, it's worked amazingly well. And it's pretty much taken the problem off the streets. So I don't know.
In our country, are we much harder, or are we more likely to label negatively the basic drug addict? You know what I'm saying? The drug addict, is our country too harsh on them, taking a really negative view?
Yes, I think so, because if you look at our prison system, it's filled with people that are there because of their drug use. Keven spent 16 months in prison, which really messed him up bad. And it was for a drug-related offense. There was no violence or anything like that, no stealing. It was drug related. And that's what happens. I mean, yeah, they put them in prison. They're looked down upon. People don't want sober livings next door to their house because they don't want that element in their neighborhood. I think it's really hard.
Got some questions on the board. Joseph says, Portugal legalized addicting drugs and overdoses went down, and so did drug use. Do you think that legalizing addicting drugs would work in this country?
Gosh, I'm afraid to answer that because I don't know. I mean, it's so, the thought of it is so scary to me. You know, I could just imagine Keven going, oh, yeah, you know, I can use all this stuff and not even worry about it. But I don't know. It's, I think over in, I think it was Norway also that happened. I can't remember exactly what country, but that's what happened there. The deaths and the overdoses went down. And, you know, Amsterdam, people have been using drugs legally for years and they don't have a huge problem like we do.
Do you think drugs like Suboxone and methadone should be given away for free to anyone without having to sign up or have it appear in their medical record?
Yes, I think that would be great. It is, you can, most insurance covers Suboxone if you have insurance, even like the worst of worst insurance. And there are ways to get it for free, but I think it should be allowed in drug treatment centers. Some of them that are very strict with the 12 steps do not allow medically assisted treatment. And I wish that would change because it really helps people.
Yeah, because I mean, Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob were both drug addicts.
Right.
People. The reason I asked that last question is a friend of mine, it detained them from getting help because they were like, well, if I ever get a job and someone searches my records and shows up with Suboxone, I'll never get hired.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, wow. Yeah, I can see how that would really be a problem.
I mean, there is HIPAA stuff. But,
yeah, there is.
John asks, how do you help an addict while still maintaining your own health and sanity?
Well, it took me a long time to figure that out. I don't know how well I maintained my health and sanity. The first 2 years were awful until I educated myself and understood what was going on with him. You have to determine for your individual self what your boundaries are, how you want to deal with it. I tried making Keven leave the home, and that didn't work for either of us. It made things worse for him. So it's just a matter of deciding in your individual case what you're willing to live with. Once I accepted the fact that he was an addict and that was the main purpose of his life at that time, it made it easier for me. It made it easier because I stopped fighting it. And not to say I stopped wanting him to recover, but I stopped spending every moment of my life trying to fix him.
Yeah, you've advocated very strongly about education for parents for their loved ones that are addicted. What have you learned after? What do people need to do, and what did you need to do to take care of yourself? So someone in a similar situation as you, the survivor of suicide, what advice would you give them?
The number one thing I would say is if you've lost someone to suicide or overdose, find a support group of people that have been through the same thing. No one is going to understand, no matter how hard they try or how sincerely they want to, what you're going through other than someone else going through the same thing. There are some excellent groups on Facebook for parents that have lost children to fentanyl, heroin, suicide, whatever it may be. And I was fortunate to, well, not really fortunate, but I was already in a support group for parents that had lost a child due to another young man that was in my life. So I had 7 years of friendships with me already when I lost Keven. And they just surrounded me with support and love. And that really made a difference for me.
Now, people read your book because it helps them. What books did you read or would you recommend besides Kevin's Choice, obviously?
Oh, wow. I would have to write those all down and be prepared. That's a really good question. As far as grief, my favorite book is It's Okay Not to Be Okay by Megan Devine. That is a really good book about grief in general. I'd have to, I'm not good at coming up with book titles off the top of my head. I mean, there were some really good ones. Oh, The Weight of Air is a good book about heroin addiction. And sadly, the author of that passed away not that long ago. That was a really good book. A good book about meth, which is like a totally different animal. Kevin did both of those things, is called My Recovery and Addiction by Ed Cressy. I learned a lot from that book. I don't know, there's some good ones out there. I'd have to look them up and get back to you.
I think books do a very good job in terms of information and realism, and movies very often do not. Have you seen any movies that have really portrayed heroin and heroin addiction in a ridiculous way?
Yeah, most of them. Most of them do. I think the one movie I saw that portrayed addiction most realistically to what I personally saw was Requiem for a Dream. And that is very hard to watch. I will never be able to watch that again. But that really showed the depths of what a person will go through.
Here's the last question, and I won't identify the person because it starts out, sorry if this is a stupid question. So we're not going to call you out and identify you, but I'm curious if you thought of committing him to a mental health institution, or was it not considered for financial or other consideration? It's actually a pretty good question.
That's a great question. He was in mental health institutions. The problem with that is they won't keep you very long. They want you in and out, 72 hours. I mean, he must have been in at least 10 times over the years. And they say there's going to be follow-up, and there's not. There aren't really like mental institutions like there used to be. You'd have to be really, really, I mean, he was functioning. He couldn't get a job because he was a felon, but he was functioning okay. It was just the anxiety and the depression that was overwhelming. And there's no place to really take someone like that.
What about outpatients that, you go, or halfway houses? Do you feel that that's a good solution, or do you think that's sort of?
Yeah, I think some of them are great. And then some of them are terrible. It's like rolling the dice. There's programs that really help. There's people that are there at the house and they're kind of taking control of things, making sure people do what they're supposed to. And then there's other places that are, they don't care what you do and you get away with things. So.
Well, Barbara, it was wonderful having you on the show, and wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you.
What a great job you did. And it's not easy, I'm sure, to even do this, but I do want to show people the cover of Kevin's Choice, and there's Kevin right on the cover. And for more information, you go to barbaralegere.com, and Legere is L-A-G-E, and actually I can't see it. L-A-G-E-R-E.
Legere.
Barbara Legere. So definitely check it out at your favorite bookstore, special order, or I like bookshop.org to support your indie bookstores as well. So thank you once again. And folks that are on the live feed on Facebook, I'm going to shut you down now, but there is a wonderful open mic, and feel free to join the Zoom link and we will let you in to read at the open mic. And thank you so much for being here as well. And anyone who is here for the open mic, please raise your hand and we'll get to you for 3 to 5 minutes. That'd be awesome. Barbara Legere, wonderful having you again. Thanks once again.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.